Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today I want to take a closer look at my favorite semiconductor company, Nvidia. More importantly, some export restrictions, some AI updates, and the list goes on and on. So let's take a closer look in today's episode. All right, so like always, let's start off with price action. Nvidia was down roughly 2.2% today, sitting at $455. And I do believe the drop today is nothing Nvidia specific. It seems to be just the overall market. We can see AMD was down roughly 1.3% today. And Intel, your favorite semiconductor, was down roughly 1.5% today. So nothing that I would say Nvidia investors should worry about, but there have been a nice amount of updates, especially AMD just announced their new kind of MI300X and a lot of new partnerships. Nothing crazy and nothing worrisome in my opinion there for Nvidia, but I did do a video on that, so make sure to check that out afterwards.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
So the first thing I want to take a closer look is there are reports that the United States issues warning to Nvidia urging to stop the redesigning of chips for China. And for those that are not familiar, AMD, the United States government, for national security reasons, keeps creating these export restrictions to not be able to send certain high performance chips to China. So when all these export regulations come into place, Nvidia kind of follows them and legally creates new chips that are under those regulations. Well, what seems to be what's happening right now is the US Commerce Secretary has mentioned that if you redesign a chip around a particular cut line that enables them to do AI, I'm going to control it the very next day. And I do believe this is pretty interesting. First, I do understand why the regulations are here. That's not why I'm confused. But what really confuses me is, hey, if you're going to set regulations, you should make sure that you set regulations that you want to be the bottom line. Then the companies and the open world can kind of go and do its business. But it does seem like there is going to be a lot of tensions here. Luckily, there was another report that came out today that showcased that NVIDIA is working and fully complying with the United States policies in development of new AI chips for China. So what it does seem like maybe now NVIDIA might take a little bit longer to redesign its next chip to send to the Chinese market. But I'm hopeful that this means is they are working really well with the United States government, so the next chip that they create and the next chip that they're able to send out doesn't get another regulation step, right? Because then that would be pretty weird. So hopefully they're working with regulators, and we're going to see maybe in the upcoming months how that works out for NVIDIA and obviously for export controls. I do want to say thank you guys for the support. If you haven't, make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. More importantly, if you want to learn about the semiconductor market, I do have a membership program here on YouTube. Just click join to learn more. I recently released new videos on AMD and Nvidia on recent conferences key points, so make sure to check that out if you want to learn more. I hope you guys are enjoying the video, so stay tuned, and also check out my special offer at fool.com/Jose. Continuing here with export controls, there are reports that Nvidia is creating a new version of the RTX 4090 for the Chinese market that will obviously be legally and meet the export restrictions. But with everything that's going on, we will have to see how that kind of progresses over time. Things outside of international markets, we are seeing Coreweave, a company that Nvidia has invested, announced a secondary sale of $642 million. For those not familiar, Coreweave is a leading specialized GPU cloud provider, and they did announce that they are selling, and I do believe this new valuation gives them a valuation of roughly $7 billion. But the CEO of Coreweave did mention that their explosive growth trajectory has been recognized by top-tier institutional investors, and this transaction highlights the differentiating of their market-leading performance. I want to say sometimes things like this kind of say, is this the top of the AI market when all these AI companies are just getting crazy, crazy valuations to some extent, or are we still in early innings? I think maybe we'll have to wait a year or two to find out before we say, hey, look, maybe this was really the peak, or this is really just the starting point. So let me know in the comments below, guys. What do you guys think? Is this the inflection point that we keep hearing about, or is this just the top here in the AI market? For those that are also not familiar with Coreweave, Coreweave just recently announced during Supercompute event on or late November that they are going to be offering the Grace Hopper 200 Super Chip instances in Q1 of 2024. And I do believe they're also going to release the H200. Yep, they're also going to announce H200 HGX platforms on Q1 of 2024. So CoreWeave is definitely a big cloud provider here in the AI market right now. They do have pretty cool partnerships with some pretty big names. And right now, I do believe they are someone to keep an eye out, especially as they are a private company. But maybe in the upcoming year or so, I wouldn't be surprised with this AI hype for companies like this to end up going public through an IPO of some sort. So right now, Nvidia is still my favorite semiconductor company. And like I mentioned, I recently just did an episode on AMD and their new AI event. I want to say this is probably my favorite slide for Nvidia. We can see that right now the AI accelerator market is roughly $45 billion in 2023. 90% of that market comes from Nvidia. By 2027, this market is expected to grow to roughly $400 billion plus. Now, that means that's a huge win for Nvidia if these numbers are correct. Now, the question is, are those numbers correct? Are we overestimating? But if not, this is definitely early innings for sure. Because if Nvidia has 90% of the $45 billion market, will they have roughly 90% of the $400 billion market? Even with 80, 70, or 50% of the kind of AI market during that space, that would be huge win for Nvidia. So I do believe this slideshow, and I do believe it was, and it was the introduction of AMD's event, was a very bullish point for the AI space right now. But again, numbers are getting ridiculous. So sometimes investors might be worried, hey, is this the top for this as we're seeing kind of all these crazy peak numbers, or are we really at the beginning? And before we actually close out this episode, I want to take a closer look at Nvidia's PE ratio. I think it's insane how now with their latest earnings, we can see the PE ratio has dropped to the current PE ratio has dropped to roughly 60. This is insane, right? This is a company that the PE ratio a few months ago was sitting over 100. Now, if we take a closer look at forward, which is the end of this fiscal year, PE ratio would roughly be 36.97. Forward is the end of this fiscal year, and that's only one more quarter. So we can see huge decline in margin here, or big contraction in margins, which bodes well. And forward 1 year, which is the end of next fiscal year, so roughly a year and one quarter from now, PE ratio is expected to be 23. So we can definitely see why many investors still believe Nvidia to some extent is undervalued. Like I mentioned earlier, we saw that number of market opportunity here in the AI space. If those numbers are true, we can definitely see why Nvidia is the big win here in the AI market. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Take care, have a good day, and see you next time.